Good afternoon. This is Scott McMeans with Action Coach SBL. We are here with Danial Gross. He is the CEO of 121 eCommerce, and there is a story to be told today. And I'm going to turn the podcast over to Danial and let him tell his story before we start asking some questions. So, Danial, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, 121 eCommerce, and how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. Nice to meet you, Scott, and thank you so much for having me on. So my story goes back around 7, 8 years ago. I joined 121 eCommerce. 121 eCommerce is a premier Magento agency. Now it's referred to as Adobe Commerce, where we create open source customized websites for enterprise level customers. I started around early 2017, pretty much as the newbie over here. I had just learning the ropes of how the business ran. Very quickly, I ballooned from a couple clients to almost handling half of the company's clients. That included either clients that were creating new websites from scratch, or clients that were had a live website that were dealing with whatever issues or whatever upgrades and helping them along. So that was it was a lot of growth for me very quickly, and I picked it up. I was surrounded by a great team, a great leader, somebody who trusted me and put me in front of those difficult situations to see how I would do. And within around 12 to 14 months, I was promoted to Director of Client Services, where I started building a client services team, where we managed all the accounts. We were the client-facing team to all our clients, and I did that for around 5 years. And then recently, due to the passing of our founder, I have taken over as the CEO of the company, and I'm leading it, with his vision and continuing that growth that he put into the company.
That's an outstanding story. If I may be so bold, I'm going to see if I can summarize what you just said, because I found it somewhat interesting. Based on the situations you're placed in and the trust you demonstrate, you're able to show success and growth, not only for yourself, but the business. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah, that would be a good assessment. I will say we were a small company, and we, by the grace of God, we landed a deal with FCA. So we were able to build an e-commerce portion for FCA that dealt with 7 of their brands, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, Chrysler. However, they were on a very difficult timeline. I think this was kind of where I made my jump. I told my wife in September, we had a deadline. We were starting around September time. We were supposed to launch the site before January 1st. And I pretty much told my wife that I love you, but I will probably not see you till next year. And I went through a period of time where I was actually working. We have developers all over the world. So we have in Argentina, we have in Brazil, we have in Ukraine, in Eastern Europe. And I was the main point of contact for that project. So I pretty much was working, I think, between 18 to 20 hours a day on my phone or whatever I needed to communicate with my team to get that project over the finish line. It was a very complex project. It needed an integration with a legacy software with Magento, which was what it was called at that time. And we launched that site, and we were very successful. FCA themselves were very happy with us. And that, I think, was a big turning point where, aside from dealing with many small clients, I was able to show that I could deal with the larger enterprise clients as well. And that helped shoot our agency into the front line in Adobe's eyes, seeing us as the go-to agency for complex and ingenious solutions.
I love the idea that you said complex and ingenious solutions, because not everybody can pull that off. And the idea that you had to go literally through the firestorm to make that happen, it shows the character that you have as an organization and the capabilities that you have as an organization. And that's the kind of stuff, in my opinion, that showcases above and beyond anything else that you can do, whether it's on a sell sheet or on a website. It's the actions that actually come through, and that kudos to you. I'm gonna kind of change up because you touch base on something I'm really intrigued by. Okay, you have developers all over the world, so I'm going to jump down to one of the questions here. It's about how do you keep that level of team in that many different locations energized and ready and capable of pulling off what you need to, knowing there's language barriers, there's timelines and time zones that are different. How do you pull that team together and keep them on the right path? How does that work for you?
That's a great question, and there's it. I mean, it starts from the top. The company atmosphere and our mood and what we're trying to pull for. We let everyone know we're getting bigger, but we're trying to keep the family aspect of the company together, where we're interested in everyone's well-being. The company offers even some perks to the senior level employees just to make their personal lives better. And the goal really is for them to understand what they're working for and what the purpose is for. It is hard, especially when you're all over the world and you're remote, which means a lot of people are just working out of their kitchens or a small area, and you got to keep them engaged. And the idea is to check in on them, give them updates on how the company is doing, show a lot of transparency. I feel that people are attracted to honest, transparent, real people. And if you're real with your team, you can expect realism back. If you're, selling something that you're not, and then you find out that your team is doing things that you don't expect them to be, well, it's kind of like an eye for an eye. What are you going to expect? But if you are out there showing them that you're caring for them, that you're out to make them more successful. One of my goals, as a job, the CEO's job, at least the way I look at my job, is to put everybody in the best position for them to be successful. And that will lead to the success of the company. But if you try to put somebody who's just not, somebody who's not in the right position, and you feel bad, changing them or making their lives difficult, you're really doing a disservice to them, because eventually they're going to lose interest in the company, and then they're going to move on to some other company, and they're going to be shell shocked because they didn't have that when they were with you for a few years. So it's important to keep all these things in mind, that I go around all day and all night realizing that I have on my head, besides from my own family and all the other all these families. And if you think about it, with the amount of employees we have, which is more than 50, we're supporting hundreds of people. And that's a when you look at your responsibility that way in your role, it's actually almost like an honor, to be able to help people across the world. And I think when people see that, and they see that you really care, that they align with you.
I agree with that. And it's an old line that I don't agree with, but I think it's rather comical when somebody says, as soon as you find a way to fake sincerity, you'll be successful. Well, I don't think you can fake being sincere. And it sounds like you have, not only a vision for the company. You made comment earlier that you're keeping in line with the vision of the founder, which is a testament to what that vision originally was. But you have this commonality among everybody that works with you, and this communication path that everybody is on the same page and they know what's expected of them. But the opportunity to be sincere, and people see through who you really are and what your heart is and why you're doing the things you do, the why comes through more powerful than any what or any how you could possibly bring to the table. And I give that to you as far as a testament to what you're building. I think it's significant. And I want to kind of go towards the path of, what are some of the bigger learnings, Daniel, you've had as an employer? Like, we're talking about all these different people, and real gets realism, as you said, which I really like. I'm curious, what are some of the best and biggest significant learnings you've had as a CEO?
Well, as a CEO, it's really getting everyone on board with your vision, and really teaching them this concept that, you got to do, money is not the be all end all of everything in the world. It's a means to get somewhere. But at the end of the day, for the business to be successful, you need to focus on that. And that's something that, that I need to have the team be aware of, always thinking about that, what's best for the business. And what's best for the business is really what's best for you and what's best for your family. And if I feel if I could get everyone really to understand that, there should be a picture of everybody's family, right next to, when you're working on it, when you're dealing with a deal and you're trying to make a sale, you have your family right there in front of you and you're thinking about them. That's where that's something that people get caught up in the moment, and you got to be calm in those situations to make sure that you can make the right decisions. I have a great story. I think it really brings out this point.
Yeah, please.
It's with my father-in-law who's a businessman. He used to buy and sell closeouts. And he used to go to Vegas back in the day, and he used to always take one kid with him as he went to his different shows. So he was in a booth, and he was he was with his son. My brother-in-law at that time was 10 years old. And they were selling like Nerf footballs or something like that. The guy wanted $8 a piece, and my father-in-law was trying to buy 25, 30,000 of them, whatever. I'm just making up numbers, a large amount, for his stores. And he would not go for $8. He wanted it down to 275 based on his margins and this and that. And he was just going at the guy, and he was going after him and after him and after him, trying to get him to go down, walking away, coming back. He got the guy down to $3 a piece, and he still wanted 275. So I have a very, very sweet, caring brother-in-law. He taps his father on the shoulder and he says, "Dad, can I talk to you outside for a second?" So he brings my father-in-law outside and he says, "Listen," says, "Dad, the guy started off at 8. He's down to 3. He said, I feel so bad for him. He said, you're fighting him over a quarter. I'll give you the quarter." So my father-in-law gave him a kiss and he says, "I appreciate that." He goes, "But we can't give him the quarter." And he said, what my father-in-law said is like, he didn't really, he's like, he's telling me he feels bad for the guy. I'm working for him.
Yeah, I'm trying to make his life better.
Yeah, I'm trying to he says you always have to have your family, whenever you're about to go into these type of situations. I think just having that picture of your family in front of you, it will wake you up almost. It almost like, it'll wake you up and make sure that, you keep on doing the best. That's my thought.
It's fantastic, Daniel, and it goes back to the adage of what is your why? Why do you do the things that you do? And if you don't have that emotional connection to what you do for a living or within your business, you lose sight of why you're there, and you distract yourself from what the ultimate goal is. So I give you tons of credit for keeping that spirit alive within that.
And that
mindset.
Comes a lot in websites, because you could create the same functionality, but you could do it in a way that it takes the site 12 steps to accomplish, or you can do it in a way that takes it 3. And you want to be proud. If it's 3, it's much faster. So you want to be proud of what you're making. There's one thing to make, to build a car, but you want to be proud of that car that you built. You want to build it the best way possible. And that's what we, that's what we try to, instill in everybody within the company.
That's awesome. This is kind of in line with the next level of questioning here, with family being in the ultimate why that everybody has. How do you balance your personal and work life? How does that work for Danial Gross?
So it really depends if you're asking Danial Gross or you're asking Daniela Gross, which is Daniel's wife. There may be a difference of opinions there. Because my wife told me that ever since that FCA project, you haven't been around. And that was about 4 years ago. So I really it is a balance. It is not something that's easily done. I also me personally, I like my inbox clean. I like my instant, my Slack messages. I want those clean. So I do check them a lot outside of work hours. But it's really it's not so easy. I think it's really important for the family to understand, how hard you're working for them, and then they could kind of understand why you may not always be available. To say that, you could build a business and be available for your family, it's really, I don't know how practical that really is. But maybe others have done it. I haven't found the secret sauce to have a highly profitable company while I'm spending time with my family. Now, I get home, I go biking with my kids. I do spend, my weekends with my family, but everybody always wants a little bit more dad time.
Of course they do. Why would they not? I mean, they get a
Yeah,
chance to spend time with you. I
thank
think
you.
it's yeah, you're welcome. It's an interesting balance, right? There is sacrifices that are made, whether it's a sacrifice on the business side to take time away, or is it sacrifice on the family side to take that slight time away? But finding that balance, whether it's a 60-40 split one week or a 70-30 split the other week, it all depends on what side is getting the 70, what side's getting the 30, right?
Right.
So to me, as a business guy, I've always found it very successful to step away when necessary to go after the things that are most important. And it sounds like you're doing a very similar thing. So keep that in mind as you move forward from one step to the next.
It's true. I mean,
Um,
one of the good things and the bad things about this company is I really could work from anywhere in the world, so that's good. But at the same time, that means
you can work from it.
I can work from anywhere in the world. So
As long as there's Wi-Fi, you have an office to work in, right?
pretty much that's pretty much all I need. So, but again, I think it's the family realizing that you're working for them, and understanding if somebody's goal is just to make money, and because they need to treat themselves, it is very hard. There is a requirement for work-life balance, but if your whole day is surrounded around that goal, um not that just if I wouldn't have the family, then yeah, then my needs would be a lot less. I would have a lot less financial pressure. But because of that, I'm always thinking about them. I'm always working about. It's all for them the whole day. It takes some time, but now I can look back and see how, appreciate how my dad used to be up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and by the computer the whole Sunday's working. I get it now.
Yeah, and it brings up the idea. The next question here is, with all that being said, how many hours are you working a week, and how do you attribute the amount of hours you work to the amount of results you're getting? So how does that work in your mindset?
I really don't know how many hours I'm working a week. Like it's really again, I have teammates all over. It could be ever since I had that project that I was working 20 hours a day. I don't know if I ever really stopped that. Which means I just always am checking for an update, or if there's an urgent issue, I always have that on my mind. Now, of course, I would, even at those times, I could spend time with my family, just have the phone available in case there's an urgent issue. That's possible. An exact amount of time, it's definitely more than 40 hours a week. It's probably more than 50. I just don't know
Yeah.
off the top of my head. I really I don't pay attention to that.
Well, here's something to think about too, Daniel. If it's something you enjoy and it's something you're good at, and you have results that are in line with the vision that you have, what is it? Why would you consider it a bad thing to be doing what you enjoy doing as far as the results are coming? So I don't want to discourage people from not working 40, 50 hours a week if it's something they enjoy doing. It's all about that balance that we talked about before, which everybody has to find their own.
There definitely will come a time where I'm gonna have to take a break and just take a mental break but I haven't gotten there yet. But yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely takes a time. Maybe do shut off your phone for a little bit and just re-energize. That it'll definitely get there. But at the same time, I think if just that type of thought will keep you going through the day, realizing why you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. The next question I want to ask you is about running a business. and what people think it's like to run a business versus what it is actually like to run a business, right? There's plenty of misconceptions that people have. Curious to learn a little bit about what you have experienced and what you would suggest is a misconception as far as how you run your business versus what people think it takes to run a business.
Yeah, I think the way to say it, I mean, it comes with a whole explanation, but the real rundown is that there's a difference between what's the difference between an employee and an employer? The employee waits 30 days for his paycheck. The employer waits 30 days and 30 nights. That's how it is. You know, it's always it's just a different rule. So I was a manager, and it's nothing similar to having the responsibility and recognizing the responsibility you have to everyone else in your company. It's really, in a way, it's yes, you're concerned about yourself, but you're really, the only way to take care of yourself is really to take care of others. That's really the best thing for you. As a manager position, which what I spent of the beginning of my career as, you know, it's not it you want to do that, you feel good when it happens, but at the end of the day, the bottom line is not by you, and therefore it could affect how you approach your team, how you approach your work. Whereas when you become the owner, or the, you know, and you become the leader, it's a whole different outlook. There's really, it's very hard to say, it's very hard to explain it until you actually do it, and it's a whole different outlook.
I have never heard it explained that way before, as far as 30 days versus 30 days a night. So I'm going to steal that, just so you know. I'll give you credit, no problem there. But I think that ties directly to your comment you made earlier, where you have a little over 50 full-time employees across the globe, which means you have 100 plus people you're dealing with and you're responsible for. And that is a true test of a leader. And that is a true test of somebody with a vision and drive like you have, bringing that whole family element together. So I've really appreciated the arc you've taken us through on this conversation, because it's really a testament to you and to one-to-one e-commerce. I think it's a really nice piece. I do want to ask you, this is the favorite question I love to ask. What advice would you give the 18-year-old Daniel?
That's a good question. And I'm debating what the answer is, because in one way I would just say enjoy the sleep that you have. You know, that's pretty much it. You know, because you're not gonna, once you I think when my firstborn was born, my brother called me up and told me, you know, you're never sleeping again for the rest of your life. Like it's over, you know. So it's you know, I'm very proud of what I did and what I got myself towards. I don't know if I have any way to look back and say suddenly if I would have just done this, I would be a millionaire today. I don't really have a lot of advice for myself. I would just say, for me, I think I would, again, I would definitely appreciate the sleep, because I don't get that anymore. And the other thing I would tell my 18-year-old self is really step out of your comfort zone earlier, because that's part of being a leader, is constantly pushing yourself. And once you get that once you get that muscle built up, it's much easier. One of the, you ever read the book David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell?
No, I have not.
So it's a great, I mean, Malcolm Gladwell is you know, has many New York Times bestseller, but one thing he said about there is, I don't remember it, it's been a few years, but one thing he noted that there's a lot of successful people that have learning disabilities. And you find that. And his explanation, one of his explanations for that after interviewing them, was that because these children at such a young age were never in a comfort zone. There was never they were so nervous to open up their mouths, and they had to anyways in school. They eventually got, you know, very used to risk, because every time they opened up their mouth and every time they did a math question, it was a risk for them. But eventually, they weren't scared of risk anymore because they lived with it all the time. So that's something that I think is important in a leader, is doing things that are out of your comfort zone, different than everyone else, and having the courage to do that. That's something that I would have, and now I'm pretty confident at it. And I think I try to instill in my children that just because everyone else does it, just because everyone else is buying that toy, doesn't mean that we're going to buy that toy. And I think I remember a couple, or maybe it was during COVID. I don't remember when it was, but like I yelled out to my children, like, "Do we do what everyone else does?" And my daughter yelled out, "No," and my oldest yelled out, "Yes, we do, and I have a list." So.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Daniel, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I want to thank you for your contributions. Your story was phenomenal. One last question, then we'll close out. What advice would you give a brand new business or brand new person leading a business? What advice would you give?
I think I would really just repeat a lot of the things that I mentioned here. You know, just you know, keeping your eye on the goal, not letting emotion cloud your judgment. You're gonna have many people that you start working with, that you create a relationship with, and you may realize very soon that you're gonna have to make an uncomfortable decision, you know, to step away or break off an engagement. And when you're young and you're just starting off, you're very unsure of yourself, but just take that risks on yourself, and you'll see eventually you will start seeing dividends in that.
Outstanding answer. I appreciate that. I want to thank Cole for helping this whole thing get set up.
Thank you,
And
Cole.
Daniel, thank you so much for just being a part of the show. And we will see you all next time on the next episode of the Business Spotlight.
Thank you.